Kamudar Pratap Singh, 49 years ago today, India was thrust into what is its darkest chapter till date in the form of the declaration of emergency. The emergency was declared by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. And for 19 months after that, the country witnessed a clampdown on civil liberties, freedom of speech and political dissent. Indira Gandhi justified the emergency by citing a deep and widespread conspiracy against her government after the Allahabad High Court had declared her election to the Lok Sabha null and void. At that point, the apex court asked Gandhi to stay away from parliamentary proceedings. In her address, Indira Gandhi had announced that there is nothing to panic about, but the situation on the ground remained different. The emergency period was marked by various political movements and events, including the Navnirman agitation in Gujarat, Jai Prakash Narayan's movement in Bihar, and the railway strike led by George Fernandes. Meanwhile, there was also widespread censorship that was brought about in the media at that time. There were newspapers like the Indian Express that protested against government censorship by publishing a blank editorial, as you can see on your screens. The emergency witnessed the centralization of power and arrest of mass opposition leaders, including Jai Prakash Narayan, L.K. Advani, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and Morarji Desai. Prisoners were kept in illegal confinement and subjected to physical and psychological torture. Victims were denied basic necessities like food and water, and even forced to drink their own urine in some cases. One such example is Lawrence Fernandes, the brother of George Fernandes, who was arrested from his Bengaluru residence on the 1st of May 1976 at around 9 p.m. He was kept under solitary confinement under extremely unhygienic conditions. There are horrifying incidents of violence that were revealed from different parts of the country. In Ernakulam, leaders chanting Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Vande Mataram were taken away by police and beaten up by 10 to 13 constables. Heads of leaders were kept between their knees and were beaten up. In Hyderabad, leaders were stripped of their clothes, denied food and made to sleep in severe cold. In Karnataka, they practiced what was then known as the aeroplane. The victim is tied up in an aeroplane manner, wherein the victim's hands are tied behind their backs with a rope. The rope is then taken towards the ceiling with a pulley and the victim is pulled up a few feet above the ground. The victim will then hang mid-air with both their hands tied behind their backs. In Rajasthan, protesters were humiliated by making their march with "We are traitors" written on them. While Indira Gandhi has claimed that the emergency was necessary for economic development, forced sterilization drives that were spearheaded by Sanjay Gandhi raised humanitarian concerns. The period saw slum clearance programs and other such incidents too that were criticized for their authoritarian nature. The emergency was lifted when Indira Gandhi called for elections on January 18, 1977 in a similar manner to which the elections were imposed. Rather, in a similar manner to when the emergency was imposed. The general elections were the ones when the Janata Party came to power, and the emergency was later lifted on the 21st of March 1977. The emergency called by Indira Gandhi remained the core issue during those elections. The Janata Alliance won those elections, hands down, and its leader Morarji Desai was sworn in as the 4th Prime Minister of India and in fact became the oldest man to be elected as PM of this nation. Alok Mehta, Editorial Director of India News, is joining us live. Piyush Pant, Senior Journalist, is live with us. Harinder Sikka, author, also joins us live. Alok Mehta, let me begin by asking you your memories of the emergency era and the dark time that it was.
Very interesting. You know, because I was working in an agency, Hindustan Samachar. And when I came to Delhi in 71 and joined the Hindustan Samachar, at the time there was you remember in December 71, there was a war, and there was a plane with the blackout used to be in Delhi. Same thing happened in 1975, 25th June night. You know, blackout for the black days, I should call it, or black night, when the emergency was imposed. At the time I was in agency, a number of editors, because I was working in agency, so it was not shut down. But even then, everybody was panicked. The Kuldeep Nair, he organized a meeting in a press club. Number of journalists went there, the senior editors. You remember S. Nihal Singh was there, Rajit Bhattacharya, B.G. Varghese. And Kuldeep Nair and B.G. Varghese all worked with Mrs. Gandhi. But even then, they were suffering. Number of editors, the arrested journalists. Then you also mentioned about the editorial page and the censorship. You know, these kind of, but then because I was in the agency and my editor, he sent me to Ahmedabad for Gujarat, because earlier also I used to go there for Navnirman Andolan and all. So they said, okay, this time, because it's with the stability agency, ultimately it was merged with the PTI, and one Samachar agency become all Hindi agency also merged with this. So these type of emergency, and when I was there, I was just wanted to very interesting case. I also went to meet Vikram Rao. Later on, the George Fernandez was arrested, and Vikram Rao he was with the Times of India in Baroda. The case, Baroda Dynamite case, he was also jailed. Ultimately, when I came to know, I was very shocked, because I thought I was also there. Maybe I will be arrested. But thank God, because then in January I shifted here, worked with the Hindustan Times Group, Saptaik Hindustan, because at the time there was no news in that sense. There only the censorship. Even then for the Saptaik newspaper magazine, we have to go to censorship for censor officer, and they used to clear about some political story or some even a story on the Air Force. When I visited to Bangalore at the time on the Air Force Day, and they said, okay, you have to get the censor for this. And it was sponsored by the government of India. But these kind of stories were also censored. These kind of, I think, dark chapter, because I mentioned it like a chapter in my books, in Indian journalism, or in power, press and politics. And here, if you give 1 minute, I will just quote Mrs. Gandhi, because nowadays everybody is talking to the parliament. What she spoke, I mentioned in my book, and sorry, I will just speak in Hindi, because it was quoted in Hindi. He spoke on 22nd July 75. Mrs. Gandhi told in Rajya Sabha, पहले जब अखबार नहीं थे तो आंदोलन भी नहीं थे. दरअसल आंदोलन अखबार के पन्नों पर होते हैं. अगर आप जानना चाहते हैं कि अखबारों पर सेंसर क्यों लगाया गया, तो उसका जवाब यही है. मुझे इस बात में थोड़ा भी संदेह नहीं है कि आज उसको हम मीडिया कह सकते हैं, जो उस समय तो कोई टेलीविजन नहीं था. अखबार लोगों को भड़काते हैं, वे सांप्रदायिक उन्माद फैलाते हैं, और प्रेस और उनकी सरकार के खिलाफ बराबर लिखते हैं. झूठ, मनगढ़ंत बातों को बढ़ा चढ़ा कर पेश करने को देश की गरिमा गिराने की स्थिति होती है, और जिम्मेदारियों को भुला दिया जाता है. भयानक स्थिति पैदा होती है. और एक nowadays people are talking with the prime ministers, because the Rahul Gandhi always mentioned the प्रधानमंत्री. She said, प्रधानमंत्री कार्यालय की गरिमा गिराने और विपक्ष को दिशा निर्देश देने की स्थितियां होती हैं, और इमरजेंसी जिम्मेदारी और अधिकारों में संतुलन कायम करने के लिए लगाई गई. इससे आप यू कैन इमेजिन दिस काइंड ऑफ strict censorship was there. And earlier also I can understand number of forces were working against the JP movement was also there, but you can't imagine that condition. Now people are compare what emergency now is the emergency, but I think the thousands, 2,000, 3,000 papers, news channels, 600 news channels are working, and all over the world social media. So nobody should compare, and I think it was a black chapter in the history of India, and it will never happen. What Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that's one point. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was also going to Vikram Rao, and when he was in jail, he used to go, he was also underground, and newspapers he used to supply to the in the jail in Baroda itself. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi was underground, but was helping, writing the posters. Some newspaper like Sadhana was also there. I still remember Vishnu Pandya is still alive there. He used to write, and underground working was there. So these kind of journalists, Malayalam Manorama, they suffered. Not only Delhi newspaper, Indian Express not alone. Statesman, Times of India. Times of India was controlled by the government board. It was totally taken over by the government board, and that's why they were running by this. And that's why, because Birla ji had good relations, that's why Birla ji also became a chairman or some director there, just on the request of the Goenka and the Mrs. Gandhi. Ultimately, it was governed by the board. Rajni Patel was also board of directors at the time. He was the treasurer of the Congress party. These kind of censorship, I think it will never happen. What Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other leaders mentioned about it. And we should not compare present openness, social media or the media. Maybe in the states we face several problems. And now earlier we used to say, Mr. Gandhi used to say CIA. Now the Chinese, you see the number of people were arrested, Maowadi and this, in the name of freedom, they are misusing it. If they go to jail, they say, okay, freedom of the press. But when Mrs. Gandhi is never allowed and people were arrested on the allegation of the CIA, even the Rajiv Gandhi period also, I remember.
Absolutely. It was all very arbitrary. It was all very arbitrary, wasn't it, Piyush Pant? The manner in which, this crackdown on the media happened, on free press happened, on activists happened, on opposition happened. It was all very, very arbitrary. What are your memories? And at the end of the day, what stood out to you in that very unfortunate period?
Yeah, of course, that was I think the darkest period of Indian democracy, and for everything which enriches Indian democracy, whether be it parliamentary practices, freedom of the press, or the freedom of the judiciary, everything was being muzzled down to protect the ruler. So this was happened, and there were very, very bitter memories. As Alokji was telling it, and there were very bitter memories. I mean, there was no freedom of the press, and the press was not allowed to criticize the government. Even before the emergency was declared, there was a long period. I think of a year or two, when we journalists were feeling this pressure, this censorship of the government being imposed on us. So that was a period. I can say, that has been a very dark spot in the history of the Indian media or Indian journalism and Indian democracy. But fortunately, that is the past. 50 years have passed, but the people and the political parties, they opposed it tooth and nail. They were imprisoned. Even journalists were imprisoned. All the political parties were imprisoned. They came, then a movement was launched, and so the regime was, overthrown. So this was happened, and this was certainly a dark period. I tell you, this happens whenever a ruler tries to become a dictator. He behaves similarly throughout the world. In many countries we have seen this. Even in India, even in the last 10 years, though we didn't have the open emergency, but the traces of that censorship of the media, the imprisonment of the journalists had been going on since 2014.
Well, I think it'd be a bit far-fetched to compare the current climate with the emergency, although that is what the opposition party is doing. Mr. Pant, stay with us. Harinder Sikka is also with us. The opposition says we must forget 1975, regret has been expressed, and now we must move on. However, do you believe that period should be forgotten? Mr. Harinder Sikka, what is your view? And what are the lessons that we can draw then from what happened during that time, so that it never happens again?
What all you will forget in emergency? You try and take this scenario a little back, and please understand that there's an encyclopedia by M.K. Singh, a 13th volume encyclopedia, who shows how a Mughal by the name Gyasuddin Ghazi became Gangadhar Nehru in Agra to escape from British. Did Nehru forget that he was a Mughal blood? Okay, Nehru's second sister, Krishan Hoti Singh, in her memoirs have mentioned who they were. Nehru's own autobiography of his grandfather, he stated that he could see his grandfather amongst the Mughals in the photograph. So they have presumed that they are Mughals, the rulers. There's another very sensitive issue. This is what government is missing, the government of the day. They should, now that there is no pressure on them, bring out these facts which are available to you and available quite a few of them in public domain. For example, is it a fact that Nehru was born in 77 Mirang in Allahabad, which was a brothel? which Motilal Nehru sold it to a lady by the name Lali Jan. And this is not something hidden. Mathai's book, O.P. Mathai's book on Nehru, on the title called The Renaissance of Nehru's Age, exposes much more and goes on in detail. You know, therefore, they had this in their blood that they are it. That's it. You can do nothing about them. And they are entitled to marry, they are entitled to do what they like. Take Nehru's example, what did he do? And this is where it comes, sooner it will come to emergency situations. He had a love affair with Lady Mountbatten. Everybody knows Sarojini Naidu's daughter, Padmaja Naidu, whom he made governor of Bengal, and relation with Shraddha Mata, a sannyasin who bore a son to him in Bengal. You know, Firoz Gandhi's name was Firoz Khan. He became Firoz Gandhi. And from Gandhi, thanks to Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, so-called Mahatma, made it Gandhi. And when he was married to Menka, that marriage took place at Yunis Khan's house, who was father of Sanjay Gandhi. These are facts that, is it a fact or not that Sanjay blackmailed his own mother? These are the inputs of emergency. They had an emergency in their own house, for God's sake. And Natwar Singh explains all this in his book. Why did Nehru visit and why did Indira visit Babur's grave? And Natwar Singh writes details about that in our book. Come back to India to the emergency. There's a gentleman by the name Sanjay Suri who writes, a journalist, one of the top of the line. He wrote at length about what all happened, what all Kamalnath did. We are simply busted under the sun. Dig them out. They are factually available. The dynasty, what all it do? They looted everything while they were alive. And they occupied precious prime land after death. What was Sanjay's contribution to our country that post that he was donated or doled out hundreds of tens of acres of land in prime area for his burial? There's another book, K.N. Rao's book. Rajiv became Catholic before marrying Sania Maino. Rajiv was a Mughal, it says. And Rajiv, on 15th of August 1988, he said on the ramparts of the Red Fort that how they have a history of 250 to 300 years. All these so-called Mughal dynasty, they have it in them that they feel that they are the rulers of India. And therefore, they will rule and nobody else will. And that is how emergency came in, because when Indira felt that her position is going away, that the JP Narayan's movement is coming up, or this, that, and the other, they brutalized. And how? And nobody's there to ask question. The emergency did not end there. In the word emergency removed, what happened in Harimandar Sahib? What did Indira do in Mizoram? Bombed our own citizens. Where was the need in 1966, January 1966? The list is endless. Running tanks in Harimandar Sahib because she wanted to control Akal Takht or Akali Dal and pushed Badal from back door to become the CM of Punjab. Rule at any cost. That has cost us a lot. And it continues to do so. In every single way, they want us to be state divided. Where was the need just prior to retiring or leaving or handing over command in March 2014, give away 128 most prime locations in Lutyens zone to Waqf board for what? Create what? This dynastic attitude that it is me, I, and myself. That's it, period. Take it or leave it. Emergency is used when Indira used and they realized that this is not going to work directly. So they're using it indirectly even today. What have they done to Bangalore, Karnataka? So much percentage gone to Muslims. Rest can go to hell for all we care. Wherever they will go.
In
They
fact,
will continue with that emergency.
this war, Mr. Pant, of the Constitution continues even till today. The opposition says it's a clampdown on Constitution happening even today, which is why they take small copies of the Constitution to Parliament. PM Modi says, who's lecturing? The party that imposed emergency. So the politics over it still continues till today, sir.
No, it will keep on. It will keep on happening, and the politics will keep on taking place. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether what you did in the past. You are not. You don't have right to correct the present. So you have the full right to correct the present. If something is wrong happening in the present, maybe you have done something wrong in the past. You don't lose that right to, because by learning from the past, you make you take a step for a better future. So I don't agree that if your predecessors, they have committed something wrong, and if you want to correct it, you lose that right. For that matter, so you have the full right to correct the misgivings, or to correct the whatever wrong is being done in the system. So raising the question of constitution is primary to the Indian democracy, to the Indian people. So when the governments started diluting the spirit of the constitution, or diluting the provisions of the constitutions, every political party and every people, even the people, have the right to raise the questions on it, and remind the government that you have to go according to the constitution. So I think your wrongdoings in the past doesn't take away your right to do right in the present or in the future.
Okay. Alok Mehta, at the end of the day, of course, do you believe that this is still an issue that has resonance in the India of today? What are the lessons you believe that should be drawn from that era so that that is never repeated? And politically, how do you see this war on the Constitution that continues even till today's date?
That's why I think it's very surprising, because the Constitution amended so many times, and especially in the 76 also, there was amendment when the emergency was there. So I feel now it's not very difficult, but it's not difficult. And even then, what happened with Jammu Kashmir, 370 abolished, it was a very good gesture because it was in the Constitution. But even then, the Congress party, some leaders of the Congress party, and they were opposing it. So whenever we need something and the unanimity, I think that's why when we are talking the one election, one nation, certainly the parliament, they should discuss the lesson. What I feel, because I was covering parliament earlier also in those days, before emergency and afterwards also. That's why I feel that in parliamentary democracy, our constitution say, don't go, and there should be some responsibility. Even we don't want any kind of censorship, and what Piyush Panji mentioned about it, that we should also learn. And I feel not the central government, but state governments, number of state governments, including Delhi government, they never think, when Kejriwal, he came as a RTI activist, but he never feel comfortable with the criticism. I think the rulers should also learn from states, because the more imposition, in emergency, what happened? In the states, there was so much jati, what we say, and situation was difficult for the media or for other people, and the family planning program implemented in such a way that people were sterilized even in the midnight in a candlelight. I reported in Mirzapur area. So these kind of lessons we should learn, that we want something, improvement in the society. We can't impose. The judiciary is so alive nowadays. That's why the parliament and the judiciary, we should protect instead of just waiving the constitution. They are not ready to accept. When the judgment comes, then the party say, okay, they are prejudiced. The agency, CBI, I'm not talking about the Nagarwala in Mrs. Gandhi days. I've seen number of cases, how the CBI is at the time working. But even then, we should respect the CBI, ED, or agencies because they are the bone of the system. If there is some corruption, certainly we are ready to expose, and the media job is to expose. We criticize on this. We see in the student education nowadays what is happening on exam. Every channel, every media house, they are reporting exclusive stories also doing. The India News and ITV Group also did. So these kind of lessons we learned that we should have more freedom, but with the responsibility. And now more challenges because the number of foreign countries, they are also eyeing, and their media, they also bias with us, and they pump money. What happened with the News Click and this kind of houses? They got so much money and they misused against the Maowadi, and they misuse. So freedom should not be used in such a way that it go against the India itself. There are forces and we should be careful. We want relations with China, America, Europe, everybody. UAE, we have a good relation, Saudi Arab. But somebody financing from ISI, Pakistan, and we say, okay, because of the freedom, we have to allow it. And the Kashmir should be out of India. These kind of propaganda, if we allow, then I think nobody in the world, United Kingdom or America, do you think anybody allowed to, okay, this Los Angeles, we want a different country, and should we merge with the Mexico or somewhere independent? What Canada is protecting now, the Khalistani movement. So these kind of, we should be more protective in that sense for national interest, for the interest of the constitution, instead of just raising constitution from first day, what is happening in the parliament. They should learn that we should discuss in the parliament.
Yes.
I've seen even the CPI, Bhupesh Gupta and all, they used to, and Mrs. Gandhi even, they used to listen. But here they are not ready. Rahul Gandhi never speak in such a way. All the time just allege the media and the leadership or the Prime Minister abusing every day. How message, and you say in Britain and America, you say, okay, no democracy. When even you won the election, and even then you say there is no democracy.
Okay.
This lesson I think we should learn.
Okay. Well, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.